Hello, my name is Karen Hughes, and I'm the Domestic Violence Clinical Services Coordinator at the Life Crisis Center. And I want to welcome you to Life Crisis Today. With me today is Michelle Gerlitzki. She's the Outreach Coordinator for the Life Crisis Center. And we're going to be talking about love shouldn't hurt. Hi, Michelle.
Good morning.
Welcome. Oh, relationships. This is a really tough times right now that we're going through in our society. And I also know relationships are beginning, the tension is bad, and relationships are struggling in some places. So why don't we talk about what is a caring relationship? How would you define that?
I think an easy way to think about that is using an acronym RELATE. Respect, equality in the relationship, listening, being aware of each other and what each other's needs are as a significant other couple, trusting each other, and just using empathy.
Wow, that's a lot. So when somebody is in a relationship or beginning to get into a relationship and they're dating, all right, how I defined dating in my day was probably very different than what's going on now. How do people define dating today?
Well, I think your point is positive because I do think that it's different for different people. I think dating can be on a spectrum for certain people. I think it depends on their generation, their age, their upbringing, their family belief systems. So I think it's just important to be aware that dating means different things to different people. And, you know, as we all are individuals, so is people, you know, their definition of dating. You know, I think that commonly it's when two people share common interest together and are hoping that that relationship will grow, maybe intimately.
I also think as people go and they use the word love, you know, and oh my gosh, that can mean so many, like you just said with dating, it can mean so many different things as to how people define it. And I know that you and I have done outreach and we've put up posters where we say love is, and then people put stickies up, and then we have another poster that'll say love is not. So why don't we look at what is love?
Okay, well, with that exercise, actually, in outreach, we've seen, like I said earlier, a spectrum of answers, you know, especially with the teenagers. You know, we get a lot of colorful, fun answers, but also very genuine reality of today answers. I think that it would be kind of neat to, once the COVID thing runs its course, that we ask those questions again after all the online access people have had, especially teens. But I think love is, you know, mostly unconditional, respectful communication between people, and like I said earlier, awareness.
Right. Can you go back to that word relate and all the acronyms you used for that?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, that is love. So what love is not?
Well, I mean, I think that we think that a lot of people, it's common sense what love is not, but sometimes it gets to be a gray area, especially with, like you said, the stress that's coming across the country and the nation and the world. I think that the definition of not loving is something that is conditional, where a person is being controlling. There may be some harmful behaviors. It could be physical, emotional. Those are examples of not love.
Right, right. And then it can also lead to abuse. And I know the Life Crisis Center works with people who have been abused. What is abuse? And I mean, I think what you just said with what love is not, it also leads into what is abuse.
Well, what we see, unfortunately, daily through helping and healing victims and survivors, they share with us what that is. And it's physical, it's emotional, it's mental, sexual, financial. You know, examples that we've heard, real life examples, are hitting, choking, use of weapons, things that some people can't even imagine. Isolating from friends and family. making a person feel like they question themselves, those sort of things.
Yeah. It's also about that power and control, that one
Yes.
partner has or exerts power and control over the other partner.
Right.
Yeah. So when we look at dating and not abuse, and not love, not love, what is love, what are safe dates or
Okay.
safe dating?
I feel like safe dating is the opposite of dating abuse. You know, it's being mindful. It's being a mutual partner in a relationship, having respect for each other. I think a big key, though, is making sure that communication is open, because, you know, some people, they might see some red flags and not really know if what they're seeing is what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So safe dating is about communication and expressing yourself and being okay with doing that, and the other person being okay with that
Right.
as well.
So even if they're in disagreement, there's still a level of like you said, respect.
Right.
In the relationship.
Putting it into
and,
words.
And yeah.
Right.
And listening to each other. Going
Right.
back to that relate. It really does come back to that word relate.
Right.
That they can relate with each other. So with social media, oh my gosh, there can be so many things with social media. It's good. It connects people.
Right.
Especially in this day and age, we're definitely using it to connect.
It's necessary
It's
today.
definitely necessary. But I can also see it being a good thing in the dating world, and also not so good thing. How has that changed, or how does it influence the dating scene?
Well, we've done actually a show on internet safety in the past, and it kind of ties into this, because I feel like with social media and internet in general, people's views get skewed from reality. And so I think, you know, what I mean by that is that they start to feed into the likes and all the texting and all the messages, and if you get more, you're liked more, and that whole perception kind of skews things and makes things gray and not as clear as they should be, where what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. So I feel like social media affects love and dating in that way, because you want to be careful and make sure you have clarity on what your needs are and what your wants are and what you don't want.
Right.
With what you're receiving from social media and what you're seeing and what you're exposed to.
Because except for like video conferencing or video chatting, you really don't get tone.
No.
And you can read a whole bunch of things in there that are there or not there.
Right.
And that can lead to some issues within the relationship.
Well, and it's easy for people on the internet to be someone they're not. And I think people need to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah.
And ask questions.
Yeah. It can also lead to stalking issues. Cyber stalking as well as in-person stalking. You know, we used to be just in-person stalking, you know, somebody following me type of thing. But now the cyber stalking, and you can do it like very under the radar.
Right.
And yeah, that can affect the dating as well.
Oh, sure. I think that, you know, people have to have a clear definition of when does it become stalking. You know, and usually you should trust your gut. You know, if you feel like something is a little much or over excessive, you're probably right. And you should look into that and, you know, ask yourself, what should I do about this? Is this person over the top? Are they stalking me? Are they pressing the boundaries? And am I okay with it or not?
Yeah. I know I get a lot of clients who ask me, well, why do they just do that? Why do they abuse? Why? You know, they're trying to make sense of the abuse, but what are some reasons that you know of that are why people do abuse?
Well, you mentioned it earlier. One big factor is control. For whatever reason, that abuser or perpetrator or person that is angry has a need for that strength and control and that level of control to the point where it's obviously inappropriate. I think that it also has to do with possibly some unresolved trauma in that person's life that maybe they didn't think was trauma, but they're acting out and their behaviors show that it's trauma. It's something that they didn't get to have resolved.
Yeah.
And so I think those are a couple things that cause abuse, but I also think that, jealousy ties in for some people because of their insecurities, and then abuse can also happen as an effect of that or a result of that.
Right. Now, I know that clients also will talk to me like, oh, it's just their anger. If they could just control their anger. Anger is just one piece of it. It's about the power and control. But anger does play into it, you know. So how can people deal with their anger so it doesn't lead to the abuse?
Well, in some situations, I think it's good to point out that the behavior as a result of anger is not okay. If they are not able to, or they choose not to control their anger, they need to be aware from other people how their behavior affects those around them. So just pointing it out, using examples, asking questions about what you see so that that person kind of gets a bigger picture that's not an emotional reaction right then. If you ask them questions and they can see the bigger picture of what their anger is doing and what it can potentially do and what some of the consequences could be, sharing those consequences, I think that's a way to deal with anger.
I like that you said choices and consequences, because that's what it's about, is people make choices and then there are consequences for their choices. So if they do start to act out on their anger rather than being angry but not acting on it, that can help as well.
And choosing other ways as healthy outlets.
You also mentioned communication, and I think that can be key.
Exactly.
Equal power or equal access to being able to communicate. Any words for that?
Just remaining calm. Equality can be a result of calmness, sitting still, as some would say. Asking questions. Like I said earlier, just getting the brain thinking about the bigger picture of what's actually happening or could happen, or what those consequences could be if there was not equal power. Finding out each other's feelings, because usually, anger can build up if someone's misunderstood. Exchanging ideas for how to resolve whatever's causing the anger, finding a solution is equality.
So being able to communicate what your needs are, what your questions are, but also listening to the other person.
On both ends.
On both ends, So if a person is dating and feels like, oh my gosh, this isn't a good, safe date, or if someone is worried about a friend or a family member, how can they get help? What should they do? How can they help the person?
Well, I think friends can believe friends. I think one of the most important things for any of our survivors that have shared with us is, that they were believed when they finally had the bravery to share what happened in their relationship or whatever their situation was. Helping the person create some sort of safety plan that they're comfortable with. Because one person may not be comfortable with the safety plan thought at all. One person might be ready for a lengthy safety plan. Making sure that the person knows they do not deserve abuse. Nobody deserves abuse, regardless of how much anger there is, whatever the scenario is. And just, like I said a couple times already, asking questions to kind of help that person process what's been happening.
And resources. What resources are there if people really want to reach out?
Well, I have a list, so I'm going to read some. National Teen Dating Abuse Helpline is one that we use, which is 1-866-331-9474. There's RAINN, which is RAINN, which stands for Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network. That's a huge one, huge resource. 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673. And then there's a few websites that people can use, especially youth. All www.breakthecycle.org, thesafespace.org, and that'snotcool.com.
That's a cool one.
And then safeyouth.org is another one for the youth or teenage.
Great. Well, wow, Michelle, you've given us a lot of information today, and I know the Life Crisis Center is there for people as well. And,
Yes.
So I want to thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share the important information that we discussed.
And there are resources for you if you do need to reach out. The Life Crisis Center is there to help you. Our website is www.lifecrisiscenter.org. We also are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we have a hotline. Our hotline number is 410-749-HELP. Again, that number is 410-749-4357. And if you don't want to talk to somebody and want to chat to somebody, we do text to chat, and that number is 898-211. You do have to put in your zip code. Please don't do this alone. Make sure if you need help that you can reach out, because the Life Crisis Center is there for you. I also want to thank Pack 14 for helping us provide this show today. And thank you for coming.